Hello, hello, friends. Thank you for tuning in to the Odd Thoughts Podcast. At the Odd Thoughts Podcast, we like to talk about the everyday odd thoughts, have conversations on relatable topics, and discuss whatever comes to mind. My name is Gunther, and I am your host. Welcome to episode 42. For episode 42, I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about things are like moments when I'm happiest, things that make me most happy. I think one key thing to a healthy existence is looking for those happy moments or just trying to find any sort of happiness in your life. Next, I wanted to kind of keep it on the happy train. I read an article that was talking about 14 spirit lifting phrases. 14 things you could say to someone that will help them get themselves out of a down mood just beyond just like listening to them. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe just come up with a few of, in my opinion, some comedy legends. I think that's kind of a broad question. There's so many to pick from, but I thought of like at least a handful of people I consider like comedy legends to me. Lastly, I wanted to end it on talking about something I had recently heard about a Japanese phenomenon called Akaya or Akiya. Akiya stands for empty house in Japanese. And apparently it's like a big thing in Japan right now where there's tons of like these abandoned homes out in small towns and there's like a push for people to to buy them or the push for them to sell it to people. And I like that idea. I want to live in a abandoned home maybe one day, renovate it. But nonetheless, if you want to listen to any of these topics, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Please stay tuned in. Please enjoy as well. Um, but before anything else, how's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing okay. Um, I'm recently, I've been doing my best to kind of like build up my confidence. I decided that 2024 is the year of trying to just like build up like my self-esteem. I've always struggled a little bit with how I view myself and kind of what I feel my purpose is in life and stuff like that. And I just don't know what surefire way there is going to be to build my confidence, right? But I've kind of started to figure there are probably some ways I can do it. I know that one thing is like making like, trying to develop my content or feeding into my creative mind. I think a lot is like something I'm doing. When I do art and I write stories, I tend to find a little bit of confidence. I'm not always like perfect and some things look a little shit, excuse my language, and not all my stories are like well done, they're just like kind of half-assed ideas. Sort of my language once again. But nonetheless, it's given me confidence to keep coming back to it. Once in a while I get a good drawing and I get a couple good bits of a story and it just makes me feel good. And I realized that I think keeping myself hidden from the world and I live kind of like as a recluse. I really do. I don't get out of my house much. I don't go outside much and I fucking feel like sorry for my language, sorry. But I feel like a loser. I do. I just don't, I'm just hiding myself from the world. And I know that's a problem. So I've started to do things like I recently, like the last couple weeks, I've been trying to like once a day trying to take a picture of myself or something that I'm kind of doing around me so that I'm kind of documenting myself and doing basically like a photo dump, every Wednesday so far. It's been both Wednesdays for the last 2 weeks. And I know that like I mean posting on social media and getting like attention from other people isn't going to build my confidence like wholeheartedly, but I know that it's just going to keep me from being hidden. I got to be okay with being seen and being like confronted with things in the world. And that's the only way my confidence is going to build. I got to put things out there. And so I'm slowly starting to do that more. And as more as I do that, it's making me feel a little bit better. And I'm only hoping that leads into just generally what I do in life. And I think like, if I build the self-esteem and I build that confidence up in me and stuff like that, I think even if I don't, lived on to grandeur things or like I become like a writer like I want to be or like whatever else, like I could be confident in that I tried and it may not happen now, but maybe it happened in a few years. Like maybe right now I have to, shift into a stable mode and just do something for the next few years to kind of get me back on a stable path. And then Just remember that that stuff's always in my head and I can always feed into that stuff. I put a lot of pressure on myself to like be a confident person or be okay with myself. It's like just be okay, just do it. But it's not going to be overnight, and I have to do these little things to keep myself from being hidden from the world any longer. It's hard. I don't want to be seen very often. I don't want to be heard from. I just want to kind of live my life, and I always say that I just kind of want to like go move in the corner of the world somewhere and just like just disappear. But I just don't think that's gonna help me none. Maybe one day, but I gotta interact with the world. I gotta interact with the real world first. Sorry. But I hope y'all are doing good too. I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to is there's a struggle kind of showing yourselves at every moment, and sometimes when you want to be seen you're not, and when you don't want to be seen you are, and and then we're not always going to feel about good about every aspect. And even when you love something so much like a certain hobby and you just like not really feeling in the mood for it, and it's not like turning out how you want, you just got to keep doing it. You keep showing yourself that you got something. You keep proving to yourself that you got something, and it's only going to show you that you do. That's what we're working on. I said in my like a couple weeks ago in my like first kind of post where I dumped those photos, like it was like 8 photos. I said that the word of the year was confidence. Man, I mean that. So that's the word of the year, confidence. But yeah, nonetheless, let's hop into the episode. Episode 42, on your way. One major key to having healthy existence, I think, in life is to find what makes you happy. Try to find those times in your life when you are most happy. Through the, thick and thin that life has to offer, we kind of need to look for those things in life that bring us that kind of happiness, those moments that kind of uplift our spirit. I find it hard sometimes to always notice the happy things or the happy moments in my life. It's hard to remember those all the time, especially like I said, when you're going through the thick of life. Maybe it's best to always look forward to the happy times and allow ourselves to have like a hopeful view of life in a way where we recognize such. I like to think that when I'm happiest and when I feel the most happy, I'm truly living a good life. And like I said, when you're going through some of the worst times in life, it's nice to have those moments to look back on, or those like things to kind of look forward to. Like I said, I think it's important to find happiness in life. And whether it's like through people or through going to places and having experiences, or like things like materialistic things, or just specific like moment of day, of the day. You know what I'm saying? Remembering when you've been happiest is such a rewarding thing, and it can offer a really good way of relieving yourself from just kind of the everyday existence and that kind of groaning sense that you might have. And I mean, inevitably there always will be those times, right, when like you feel that tenseness and you feel a little bit of that, life kind of coming in on you, and not everything could be good, right? Not everything could be happy and great in life. So when things kind of come around, when that happiness kind of comes around, it's important to really grasp onto that and really acknowledge it. Good times will come and come and go. And it's really hard, I think, sometimes to I feel like the negative sometimes will outweigh the positives, because negative is such a harsh feeling. It brings on a lot of those like bad feelings around, anxiety or depression or sadness or whatever. And so, happiness it's a good feeling, but it's not as intense necessarily. When you're happy, it's something that should be to your core. And when you really enjoy something, it's something you feel deep. And so like, that those good times will come and go, and happiness will come in moments, in these fleeting moments. And whether, like I say, it doesn't have to be a prolonged moment for it to last. It's just kind of that feeling that you have in the moment, just remembering that, oh, I did feel happy in this, or oh, I can, for right now it's not a good moment, but I know eventually it'll turn into this other feeling, and about feeling of being happy or whatever. I think it's important to find what makes you happy 100%. Pull yourself through, all these times in your life, remembering those happy moments. And that's a hard thing, I think, to define. Like, what makes you happy. I think it's like, there's no specific thing, at least for me. I know that for certain, like when I like play video games or I watch movies or whatever, I'm pretty happy. I'm distracted in life, and sometimes I can get frustrated at a video game once in a while, but I truly think like that's when I'm really happy, you know. I know that like when I'm watching, or like I said, I'm not just watching movies, but watching like YouTube or something like that. I'm pretty happy. Usually YouTube kind of feels like it's just like background noise to me most of the time, and it's just something that I have going on so that I don't feel like, it doesn't feel too quiet. The voices in my head can, be distracted a little bit. Sorry. But I feel happy, like, and especially like if I'm on like social media or YouTube and I'm watching like wholesome videos. I've talked about this in a previous episode of the podcast, but like I love wholesome content. Like those, that I'm pretty happy watching those videos and watching other people like laughing and smiling. Those are probably when I'm most happiest. Truly, I think just sometimes those simple things, even just like having a good meal, just going out to a restaurant you've been wanting to go out to, or cook something at home. That stuff makes me happy. Just seeing like my kitties. I got two little kitties, Tilly and Tom, and they're awesome cats, and they absolutely make me feel happy every time I see them. It's the best. But even things like what I'm trying to think of like now. I'm just all the things that make me happy. Like hanging out with my siblings, like that's always a good time. 100%. Like my youngest, my little sister, my older sister. It's like different experiences with both. I'm able to do different things with both siblings. So, but nonetheless, it's just both of them are awesome. And anytime I get spent with them, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty distracted from the rest of the world, and I'm just thinking about how awesome it is, right? Things like, even like I like to take, I mean, once in a while, I'll take a nighttime drive. I like to like listen to music and just kind of think. And that's what I just kind of do. Sometimes I'll just go do that for like an hour and a half or whatever. And I like driving around a little bit and getting like outside of the suburbs where I live, like Carrollton. And I like going to see, like trying to go towards Dallas, or, maybe I go out more towards like 121 and try to go out towards Frisco or something like that. I have fun. I'm a traveling man. So those are times when I know that I'm happiest. Those are kind of times I know that even when I'm like in a bad mood, I can go into these certain things and I can become happy. I could go take that nighttime drive. I can go hang out with my siblings. I can go play a video game. And I know that will bring me happiness. I think like as my memory, my memory gets a little bit iffy. Sometimes I can remember some stuff so easily and some stuff not. Sometimes like when it's the happy moments from the past, like the happy moments of my life, those are kind of hard to sometimes remember specific moments. I can remember, some good birthdays or some good Christmases, or just certain things. Like I can remember certain good moments, but sometimes it is hard just because like I got so many new things coming in, right? And as all of us, I think like with new information and new things coming into your life every single day, it could be pretty hard to, I think, like remember the good times of the past. And sometimes like it can maybe even cause connections to those like bad moments from the past. Like when you're going through harshness now, it may bring up the harshness from the past. But I just think in the same way, that's what happiness should do. So maybe it's like, maybe it's not always easy to look forward or like look back to those happy moments or remember specific happy moments. So I think, when you're moving forward in life, I think look forward to happy moments, right? I think that's kind of a big sentiment you could even remember is there's an inevitableness to like good and bad, good and evil, and we don't know when it's going to happen. There's no outline that tells us, and you can, go to church as much as you want and be as good of a person, or be the opposite of that, and who knows if that's really going to tell what reflects the things that are done onto you or how you feel in life in general. So I think just looking forward to those inevitable moments of happiness that I know will come for everybody. Because even in myself, I'm a pretty dreaded person sometimes. I could be a pessimist to the max, but I hold this thing in the back of my head of optimism that I know good times are gonna come, that I know I'm gonna be happy in the near future. With most things in my life, some stuff it takes time, but most stuff it feels like as good and bad are just fleeting moments. A lot of these things are just fleeting, emotion, these waves of emotion or whatever. And when inevitably those times of happiness come, you really got to just like appreciate those moments. I think that's the beautiful thing of life is like life will give and take, and it really doesn't give a who like I said, nothing says what's be given, what's be taken. So when it gives and you get a couple good moments in life, you got to really appreciate that, and really ingest in that and know that like that I got to experience those moments. As people we get to experience those moments, and they're not always going to carry us through the bad, but it might help. It at least will tell you that another good time will come. There's going to be the peaks and valleys. It will happen. You just got to believe that it's just your due justice as a person, I think, and having a healthy existence to believe that for sure. I'm always looking forward to happiness, moments of happiness. I'm doing better as I get a little older. I mean, I struggled with my mental health for a long time, and I still do. And with that pessimistic view, it kind of sticks with me. But I'm doing better about looking forward to the good moments, and even if it's not like everything I pictured in my head that it's gonna be, at least when I feel that a little bit, I know when I feel happy. I know what it feels like. I know when I can feel a little bit of that relief from the dread. I know what it feels like. So I just try to look forward to those things. I think things in the future that'll bring me happiness are like, I think about like, family. I think that's one big thing is I just want a family really bad. And whether it's just be kids or if I can have a wife and kids, like that'd be awesome. But I just want a family because I just know that's going to be fulfilling for me. And so many more. I love sharing experiences with people. So with the family I already have, like I would like to create my own moments with my own family and hopefully, pass things down as it happens. I would love. I think about one day I'm gonna move away from Texas. I know that for a fact. I just feel like I will, and I always say that I just want to like make enough money so that everybody in my life is set, and I can go just like I could just go move out in the middle of nowhere and just go off in a corner somewhere in the middle corner of the world and just live my happy existence. So one day I look forward to that as well having developing a career of whatever I do. Like I'd love to be a writer. That's one thing I'm kind of thinking about right now, and using my voice, continue to use my voice for whatever reasons. Those are the moments I look forward to. But there's so many more because there are even things that I probably don't even know right now that I'm looking forward to until it happens. I think that's a beautiful thing is like you don't want to hold the expectation that this specific moment will happen and make you happy in this specific moment because you might let yourself down. So you kind of just keep that spectrum open and hopefully you find any moment you can when you are happiest. And I suggest everybody think about times when they've been happy or just really appreciate those moments when you have been at your happiest. When we are experiencing harsh times in our lives and are kind of down on ourselves, it is hard to keep motivated and look forward to kind of each day and each moment in our life. As we all have the capability to be in such a down mood, we should all do our best to try to lift ourselves out of those moods and if we can, try to lift those out of those moods, other people out of those moods, sorry. Just as you know that you experience these like down periods of your life, you got to be empathetic towards other people that do as well. There are many ways I think that you can help people lift their spirits, in some way. And, you don't know how it's going to affect necessarily. And it's not always a perfect time, maybe even. Like, you don't know when the most comfortable time to reassure someone is, but there are multiple ways you can help lift someone's spirits. I think one of the big things is sometimes just listening to what someone has to say is a good idea. I think just listening is step one. But if you want to take a step further and you want to maybe try to comfort someone that, or even comfort yourself in a way, when you're in that down mood, I think you can start by saying a few like uplifting phrases, if you will. I read an article recently. It was in a parade on the computer, and it was talking about 14 spirit lifting phrases. And I was kind of thinking, I was like, well, I'm always kind of bad with those moments. Sometimes I think like I'm not always good with knowing necessarily what to say in any moment. So, I try to be empathetic towards people. I'm not a very like, I'm not a sympathetic person necessarily. Like, I don't feel what people feel, but I can understand people's feelings. Just as I just hope that people would understand mine. So like, when it comes to comfort, I try to be that like if people come to me with something, then I want to be there for them. I want to try to do my best to, make them feel better. And, listening is something that I think I really do. Like that's something that I try my best, just be kind of that wall, if you will, or be kind of a mirror so that it doesn't feel like you're talking to nothing. Sometimes like a mirror to bounce things off of, like to bounce someone else, someone's own thoughts off of you, yada yada. But I think like, it's there's some sort of nature in all of us. I think it's to want to try to start comforting people by like, who are down, sorry, start comforting people when they're in down moods. And I mean, usually when you're like closer to people, it's a little easier, right? Like sometimes when you don't know someone, you don't, you can't pretend like you care, like you don't want to fake it, but you do understand that people go through things. And I think a lot of like people's nature sometimes is to like, when someone's really in like, they're sad or they're crying or they're kind of in that down mood, like you want to comfort by hugging or something like that, right? Or you're like, you're trying to solve their problems, like being really hands on, like, oh, I'll do it for you. Or maybe like, you're just trying to offer any sort of distraction. There isn't a perfect solution. I think like based off of how close you are to someone and maybe what type of relationship you have with them, and based off of what they're going through, I think like there's a multitude of things you can do, truly. So there's no perfect solution, no perfect way of comforting someone. Also, like, I don't think there's really ever an optimal time, when someone's like, starting to go through something, like, that might be the best time to intercept, but people got to process. So, like, if they never process what they're dealing with, then delaying it is just going to be worse. It's just going to be bad. Or if you let someone kind of deal with it right at the bat and they don't know how to deal with it, then that could be a struggle too. But I think like in the article, what it was talking about is like one of the best things you can do is just at first it's just kind of listen. Someone willing to hear another person's perspective, I think like it's a very comforting thing. At least someone can kind of just like talk and get what they need out and not even having someone really talk back at them, just kind of like be like an active listener too. Make sure that you comprehend and retain information, show them that you are listening. You know, eye contact is one way, like verbally saying you understand and that you like, I get it, like I can understand that, da 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 da. You got to show that you're invested. And so like, listening is a good basic step. And then taking it further, like when you wanted, like if you just don't want to be a brick wall, right? Like you don't want to just be there listening, maybe you can do a few phrases. So I think these were 14 phrases. I think they're pretty good. I thought like you could probably come up with your own variations or like maybe some things that usually have done work for you, or like you said to someone and it's helped them, right? There's a couple things. I think like they gave like good phrases and then shows like the meaning behind the phrases kind of helps you like it like expresses what you're trying to express. So the first phrase that they had was, how can I help? Just a good basic question. It shows a willingness to support and avoid just offering assistance where it's like, just like avoid just offering like, oh, I'll help you get through this thing and maybe more so adding a hands-on approach where it's like, tell me exactly what you need, like, and I'll do exactly what you need me to do. And like I said, beyond a willingness than just to be there for someone, where you're actually willing to like interject and support beyond just like sitting there, and just listening to someone. So that's a good, I mean, like, how can I help? Being very direct with that. Number two, it said that it's okay not to be okay. That's a pretty classic expression. It's okay to not be okay. It's something that a lot of people tell themselves and a lot of people tell other people. It's okay to not pretend, right? Truly. Okay to not hide discomfort. I mean, like, you want to be, don't want to fake it and tell people that you're not, that you're like, oh, I'm all right, but you got something seething below you. Because it'll build up eventually and it'll come spilling over and, that discomfort will show. So, if you're hiding it, then that's not okay. So realizing that saying it's okay to not be okay is a true like it's pretty basic, but it's okay to not don't fake it. Just say that you're not okay. So number 3, they had I love you, which I mean that's pretty classic. I mean like, saying I love you to someone, really showing that you care, showing that this person is important towards you. Showing that you have like that they have a value or that they're like that they're sorry, that they're valuable to you. Sorry, I was like fumbling. Dang. You know what I'm saying? Like but the love hormone, like I was saying that like oxytocin, like, makes people feel secure and calm. So when people feel loved, it might help them. It might lift their spirits up a little bit and help them relieve them from a little bit of that bad mood. Not directly, but it might help. So all these phrases just kind of are helpful. They're not going to directly take someone out of that mood, but they could help. Next, number 4, it had I'm here for you, which it's a good one too. Let someone know that you'll show up, and it gives kind of the people the confidence to that they have someone reliable with them. It kind of allows people to know that they can lean on someone a little bit, and even if they don't want to be a burden on other people, but when you actually say to that person, "I'm here for you," it makes it feel like they're not a burden, and it makes it feel like they actually have someone that's going to help. And it's important to when you say that to actually then show up for someone if you say that. Number 5 on the list is my support is unconditional. That's a little bit of like a very direct way to say it, but in some way letting them know that like I'm here, I'm definitely supporting you. Anything you do, I'm 100% behind you. It's that way of showing that you accept someone as they are. Emphasize that you're gonna support them no matter what. That even though they're gonna maybe act out in a certain way and their emotions are gonna take over, that doesn't matter. I'm here. We're gonna work through it. We're gonna make it through. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, like I think that's a calming thing for a lot of people is knowing that someone behind them or multiple people behind them, any support behind them is always gonna be there. Number 6 on the list was let's go do something. You know, like let's go and, go out and go do something besides just wilting away in the house or wilting away with your emotions. It's a way to, distract someone, for the moment, but distract them from the troubles at the current moment. Kind of like that mental break from any distressing thoughts. And in a way it's like it's like taking away, that kind of anxiety for a second and displaying the concentration elsewhere. Right? Like I said, it's just a distraction for the moment. Just give you that little bit of a break. And sometimes I think some people just need to get out of the wave, out of the, kind of the dark cloud that's kind of surrounding them. I know sometimes I feel like that's what I need. Sometimes I just like that's why if I take like a nighttime drive, like literally what I was talking about in the last topic, it's kind of just taking myself away from maybe a down mood or from that kind of dark cloud that I've kind of surrounded myself with. Number 7 on the list is I appreciate you. That's one that I use. I definitely say, just let people know that you appreciate that they're around and you're thankful that they're here. It expresses a certain gratitude. It makes someone feel valued and respected. Because when people are going through those down moods, there's really that like there's a no good feeling and that, you feel like, there's nothing for you. And so letting someone know that you're thankful for them or that there's a place for them, that there's an appreciation for them, I think that makes people feel solid, 100%. Number 8 was you're doing great or I'm proud of you. Which that's one that I like to use a lot. That's a really basic one. Nothing's perfect, right? So people's processing is going to always look different. And so when people are kind of trying their best to work through things and they're doing all they can, that praise can be pretty good. It can boost that confidence and help people with that motivation and help people kind of push towards the path of getting a little bit better and lifting their spirits as much as possible, right? And that's something that I think I want to hear, truthfully, that someone that I'm doing okay, and I'm doing my best. That's I know I'm doing my best, but I need to hear that my best is okay. Number 9, I have is I'm praying for you or I'm sending you good vibes. Depending if you're kind of a religious person or not, right? You know, Yeah, sending those good vibes, sending that, that prayer to someone, let someone know that you're thinking of them. I think generally that's kind of what it is. Keeping someone in your thoughts. That kind of adds, like I said, that adds that empathy. It's not necessarily like feeling someone's direct feelings, but it's always having that, like, oh, this, I got to remember that someone's going through something. And if this stuff happens in their life and they show this kind of side of themselves, it's all because of this. And I just got to let them know that I'm always hoping for the best, and I'm not ever going to act towards you in a certain malice way to like demoralize you even further. I think that's a good one. Sending good vibes your way. Getting close to the end. Number 10 is, do you want to talk? It's a pretty direct one, and I think like that should have been up higher on the list. I should have just like listed it like kind of how I thought importance wise, but that's a good one. That's a very direct, like, how can I help, right? It's the same way. It's like, do you want to talk? Like, are you ready to talk? Because, everything like internalized thoughts prolong distress, right? So maybe, not everybody's always going to be ready right off the bat, but eventually there's going to be a seam that's going to burst. So those heart to hearts, those kind of conversations, make it feel a little bit better. It helps that know that you're not alone in what you're going through. And like, when you're ready, and it hopefully offers a safe space. Like when you ask someone for that, it's supposed to be that safe space to where they feel like they can finally say what they need to and, externalize their stressful internal thoughts. And so, and like I said, that's a very direct way in. Not everybody's always going to be ready to talk right off the bat. So that's a good direct question. Um, Number 11 is, today is only one day compared to the rest of your life. That's a very basic one. Yeah. It's hard, when you get multiple days that kind of pile on each other right in a row. It's like, well, then it kind of negates that, or at least you feel that way. But though these, few hard times that you're going through it's not going to matter comparatively to the rest of your life. Just nothing. Not everything is permanent. Emphasize the temporary mindset of like, of feeding into that. These negatives are only a temporary fleeting moment, and you shouldn't feed in it too hard because it will be gone. And, look for the brighter days, right? Remind us that there are brighter days to come for sure. And I like that. It's only one, it's only a brief moment in the rest of your life. Number 12, we have, you are strong, or any sort of kind of empowering statement like that. You are awesome, you are strong, you are smart, you are capable. That's a that's a booster to the self-esteem for sure. It makes people feel more capable at accomplishing struggles too, right? Like I think it's one of those things where like it's like you just feel a little bit weak and you feel vulnerable when you feel weak when you're vulnerable. And so when you're kind of having all these emotions and you're going through all these struggles, your capability in your own mind is kind of questioned. So when someone empowers you, gives you a little bit of that boost in self-esteem, I mean, that feels good. 100% that feels good. Because like your past doesn't define you. You're stronger than 100%. You can achieve whatever you set your mind to. You're in control. I think that all those kind of things help empower you. Two more. Number 13 is, I can understand why you feel the way you do. That's a good one. That's like, that's one that I use 100%. Just acknowledging someone saying like, "Hey, I understand what you're feeling." Like you may not know exactly to the T, like you may not have gone through the exact moments they have, right? But letting you understand validates their feelings. It makes people feel seen, it makes them feel less alone, even if it's not a one for one accounting, like even if it's not exactly what they went through. Everybody has certain things, and emotion is understandable. It's a common human struggle. You know what I'm saying? So to let someone know that you understand what they're going through, or someone to let you know is it helps you make you feel validated. Last on the list, the last one they had was, do you need other types of support? I think that's a good one to kind of end it on. Excuse me. But sometimes people don't know where to go or what help to reach out for, right? And so, besides just having a conversation, there might be a need for some sort of additional support. Finding therapy, or like, helping them buy necessities, like buy groceries, like help them like run errands and stuff like that. Anything to alleviate some sort of stress upon them. People just it gets so wrapped up in emotion, and I know I've gotten wrapped up in the darkness, and I do get that way quite often. and that keeps me from doing a lot of my day-to-day things, and I wish someone could take away, like, all that stuff, but it's not always gonna work out. But sometimes I struggled for a long time not knowing where to look to get help, so sometimes, like, if you're that type of person that may be able to offer that help to someone, that's a good way to offer it, asking them what kind of support they may need, or just kind of posing that question upon yourself and saying, like, well, this person, talking isn't enough, and like me listening isn't going to do anything. And so, how can I really reach out and really help? But yeah, I think all 14 of those phrases are pretty simple. And whatever iteration you kind of do with however you say those, phrases, I think the whole point is that sometimes, like, the best thing you can do is just say these basic things and help with a little bit of reassurance by letting people know, and you can't, just having a little empathy. You don't have to cry people's tears or get mad when other people get mad, but you got to be empathetic towards people's feelings. And just as you are going to go through these times in your life and you're going to have these down times, like, that other people will. And as you wish, you would probably hope that some people help you out. If you can, help other people out. And start by listening, and if you can, just add these little phrases and just do your best to just try your best to, like, motivate someone a little bit and just lift their spirit tiny by tiny. It's going to be a process, and who knows how long that process is, but I think it's important to lift people's spirits up, and there's a lot of ways you can do it. Kind of sticking on, like, the happiness theme that I have so far, a little bit the uplifting kind of theme I have going on so far in the podcast. Um, I was kind of thinking about, like, some different, like, comedy legends. I think that most people, hopefully, they like comedy movies, and I especially me, I do like 100% like comedy movies. But I was kind of thinking about, like, through my life, through my childhood, all the way up until today, how many people have kind of stuck around and have kind of made, like, anywhere from, from back when I was a kid, something popular to now, and and still are very funny. Or at least kind of think about, some, movies or some actors or whatever that no matter what they've made, whether it's in my lifetime or not, that whatever they made it still remains good. It still kind of holds up. And it's kind of hard. I just it was like there are so many great, like, difference. There's kind of I'm sorry, I'm fumbling a little bit, but it's kind of there's a difference between, like, comedians who might do, like, comedy movies and, like, comedy actors, right? When you got, like, a comedian, when I think comedian, I think of, like, stand up. And, comedians might be in movies, right? Like Chris Rock, he does stand up. Eddie Murphy, right, does stand up, but they've also been in movies. And they're, I mean, pretty talented. Excuse me. But also, like, some actors, like, have, like, started in comedy and, try to be comedians, but then just kind of moved into the acting space, like Adam Sandler or Jim Carrey or Robin Williams or something like that. And so there's kind of it's so many different vibes, but nonetheless, it was kind of pondering and trying to come up with, like, a list of, like, comedy legends who I believe, like, are some comedy legends. And that's so hard because I feel like I could go. I really don't know how many names. I mean, I came up with, like, five. I wrote down five, but I'll try to do my best to kind of, like, navigate beyond that. But I think, like, one of the most classic ones, I know one I can confidently start out with is Adam Sandler. And that's a pretty cliche one. I can definitely say that, but when I kind of look at the general grand scheme of things, I believe with anybody, like a musician or an actor or anything like that, you don't have to like every single thing they do. Just look at what the things you like about them, and if those things are amazing to you and they're incredibly likable to you, then, base your opinions off of that. And when I think about, like, the good stuff that Sandler has done, and I think about, like, the duds Adam Sandler has done, the good outweighs. And I mean, it's like my lifetime. He's been doing movies my whole life. I mean, recently in this last year, he came out with, like, movies, and he did one with, like, his wife and his two daughters, right? So it's like he's still doing it. And now now we're old enough to where, like, we see his family doing it with him. I mean, his wife has always popped up in his movies, but it's like his daughters are now doing it, and it's like that's kind of crazy. We've come full circle. But I think of like like growing up and watching like Waterboy or Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore. Like those movies were amazing and like absolutely like epitomized like the 90s, and they really helped launch his career right after SNL, kind of when he was fired from SNL. And all those guys like David Spade, Chris Farley, like Chris Rock, like all these guys that were coming like that just were looking for something. We're looking for a new thing. And he took advantage of that and definitely was doing he was like the guy, I feel like. And then you get a couple like if you think about like, what's the like Punch Drunk, right? Isn't that the one? Like it's a more of a serious movie, or you think of something like Spanglish or something like that, or recently Uncut Gems, like he's made the twist or like not the twist, but the transition into sometimes not so funny things where it's not like, slapsticky or making directly, fun of him or whatever. And I appreciate those movies too. And like I said, the duds are there as I think most actors and actresses and artists and general musicians, whatever. Everybody does that. But I think Adam Sandler's a pretty big no brainer right off the bat. I think like he's still doing it, and I there's tons of movies he's done that are still good. I mean, truly. Another person that I was kind of thinking of, he's never done it. I mean, like let's see. I guess like he did the new history, yeah, history of the world or whatever. But Mel Brooks, or not Mel Gibson, Mel Brooks. He's before my time, 100% before my time. I mean, like movies like High Anxiety or like Blazing Saddles or Robin Hood Men in Tights or like like that stuff or History of the World. Like those movies were before me. They were, but they were ingrained in my childhood all the time. Like I was watching those movies all the time. And Mel Brooks was like, he's just himself a funny individual. And like when he pops up in movies and he pops up in his own stuff, it's always great. But he just has a good way of like getting people together and writing these super funny movies and making just great, funny pictures. And that's a pretty classic name. I mean, like, I'm happy that I always said in my lifetime that I wish I could like watch like a new Mel Brooks release. And like I said, he did like the new History of the World. I didn't see it. I'm a little tepid, I think, to kind of see it and ingest in that. But huh, I, I don't know. Blazing Saddles. I mean, how can you really? Or Spaceballs. Like that's probably like my favorite one. I don't know. That's stupid to say, I guess. I don't. It's not stupid to say, but like I love Spaceballs. I think that movie's so freaking funny. And I mean, Robin Hood Men in Tights maybe even is my favorite. And he has had a way of just like, and it's very much so was like I think like a good time for comedy was like 70s and 80s, and he definitely he took advantage of that. And I think that was like the vibe of movies coming out at the time. It was either like these really goofy comedies or like kind of weird graphic like slasher movies, at least in like the late 70s, like 80s, like early 80s. Yeah, it's but you can't deny that I think like a lot of comedians now or like maybe a lot of comedy actors or directors kind of they say that he's like that inspiration. I think a lot of people would say that and would name his movies as like top comedy movies of all time. And maybe it's just his eye for putting people that are funny in movies or whatever, but I mean, I think like just also having funny stories. I mean, you can't deny that. Mel Brooks is like a no-brainer as well for me. Another no-brainer, I mean, like pretty obviously is like Robin Williams. I already said his name, so like, but Robin Williams is like he's pretty fantastic too. I mean, someone who was in my generation and a little older, like all over our childhoods, all over. I mean, anywhere from like watching something like like I mean, like watching like Mork and Mindy reruns on like TV or something like that, or like watching like Mrs. Doubtfire, or I'm trying to think of like now I just can't think of anything like or like Good Morning Vietnam. Like that's kind of old, I know, but like dude, or like watching Aladdin. Like he was the voice of the genie when I was a kid in Aladdin. Like or dude, I mean there's so many things, and he's also always had I think he's had a good like eye for wholesome comedy where he can do a little bit of that slapstickiness and he can be a little bit exuberant, but something like Patch Adams, you watch like Patch Adams and you're like crying your eyes out because it's like he's a doctor who's trying to take care of these sick kids, and he's a little unconventional in his ways, but he's a good man. Like, that's the whole thing. And or like, even a Good Morning Vietnam or something like that. It's pretty simple, but I mean, like with this terrible war, he's just trying to do his best to like upraise everybody's morale and upraise everybody's spirits or whatever. And that was a pretty hard time to do around that time. I don't know too many people who knew about the Vietnam War, but it was pretty bad. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that, but I mean, but just like it was a tragedy when he left. It was 100% a tragedy, and like it was like it just really shows you. It was like one of those things where sometimes the funniest people or the people you see that are the happiest on screen are like the most depressed behind the cameras, and that's a pretty unfortunate thing. And who you would have never known. He was maybe the public would have never known. You maybe could tell by some interviews or whatever, but you would have never known. That was a struggle that he was going through personally, and unfortunate, but we have his movies to live by, and I think his daughter just directed a movie. Literally, I think so. I think it's Lady Frankenstein. I think that's literally the one I think so. I don't know. Zelda's her name, Zelda Williams. But I mean, I know she knows how big impactful her dad was, and I think we all can remember Robin Williams pretty fondly. And yeah, I don't think like I just think about like I wish we would have got that like autobiography, not autobi or like not autobiography, but biographical film that it was kind of teased like a couple years ago, I think, or there was like a mock trailer that kind of came out, and the guy that they had like playing Robin Williams is like an impressionist, and he's really good at the Robin Williams impression. But I would like to see that maybe one day. But yeah, I'll talk about a couple more. Why not? Um, let's see. I guess I said Jim Carrey already, so why not him? I think he's kind of like the same thing. He was all over my childhood, and a lot of people who are my age or a little older. I still tell this day. I mean, like, another one of those guys that I think kind of had even like a proclivity to like, he's done some of those more like slapsticky, cartoonish kind of characters where it's like, Ace Ventura or it's like, Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. But then he's done things like The Truman Show where there's some comedy in it, but it's not a comedy movie, but it's got some comedy in it. He's a funny character by nature, and he's got some funniness to him, and like him freaking out can be kind of funny, but it's like then you think about the bigger picture of like this existential crisis of your whole world being manufactured. It's pretty you know what I'm saying? That's pretty freaky. But 100% like and then making crossovers into serious movies like I think maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me, but when a comedian or a comedy actor, someone who's funny, who spends their life kind of known as the funny person, when they can transfer and cross over into doing like dramatic roles or horror movie roles, I love that. And I think that makes the funny way more funny because then you're like, they have the two sides, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But I mean, like, Jim Carrey's really, he showed those two sides 100%. And like, you think about like him being in Living Color and like that whole show and kind of being like on that sketch comedy and he had all these like great characters and he was kind of known as that exuberant guy and kind of always portrayed that way. And I just what else? Like what else? Like why am I blanking on just like movies now? Like I'm such a fan of movies apparently. I don't know. Like in more recent times he hasn't really done much. I think like the last thing I really ever paid attention to him doing or anything like that was that documentary that came out about when he was filming Man on the Moon, which was like when he was playing Andy Kaufman. That's a good documentary and like kind of shows you a side of Jim Carrey that nobody knew. Nobody knew that that's kind of how but only on that one set, but that's kind of it shows the extremes of like method acting and getting lost in another person's like persona basically. And it's good that it came out kind of later in his career and kind of like beyond like all these because even like Yes Man was a good movie, but it was kind of the last like bit of like truly like Jim Carrey being around, and so he just kind of became kind of a fixture in society, right? And then like that documentary comes out and it kind of shows you the duality of a lot of these people. But let's see, one more. Can I think of one more? Um, see, like this is the tough thing is like who do I find like particularly funny? Let's see. I always watch like I always watch clips from like Park and Recreation. I don't know why. It always pops up. And so Amy Poehler, I can pretty confidently put her on there. I remember growing up and I wasn't super into SNL, but the times I did watch SNL, her and Tina Fey on Weekend Update was great, and they were absolutely funny. And when you're on Weekend Update, apparently, I guess that means you're kind of like you're like one of the head writers or whatever, or like you are the head writer. I don't know what that means. I don't know though. Like maybe I'm speaking on my ass on that. Excuse my language. But it's one of those things where like she was always funny, and like you put her into sketches and she was hilarious. And then like eventually like she started doing movies or whatever. Like and it was hard. I think like she never got like the leading role in too many things, and she'd have like some pretty good parts. And but it wasn't until like Parks and Recreation where she actually got like a show and not to show off, just like she's the ultimate like wholesome funny where it's like she's just like a good person, a good character. She cares about everybody, and she's just goofy as hell, like just in her nature and just how she is. And like it's like that show was pretty perfect to me. I don't know about y'all, but I loved Parks and Rec, and so and she was like I think the thing that really held it together. Truly, I think was the one thing that held it together. I love all the I like all the characters. I mean, like I maybe be a little controversial and say I didn't like Chris Pratt as Andy. Whatever, fight me about it. I don't care. I mean, like I'm even like I like Aziz Ansari more than like I liked Chris Pratt. Say popular unpopular opinion. Sorry, oh, dude. I just put like it's like the main character. Like when yeah, I loved Amy Poehler. I love Leslie Knope is one of the funniest people, and Ben Wyatt obviously. Adam Scott was pretty good, and I like Rob Lowe. I like Chris Traeger. I like Anne. I mean, I like Rashida Jones. I think she was funny too. Well, yeah, I think like it's hard to come up with like comedy legends, but I would say those are just a few of my comedy legends. And maybe like down the road, I'll talk about it again eventually, and one day I know I will. But comedy is just comedy movies are fun, and like they're always going to be around. And I think we've kind of maybe we've kind of gotten lost to like some stars in that way, legends in that way. Like there's people we consider movie stars or whatever, but like I just don't think they live that way. Or like people are in a lot of comedy movies, but they're not like comedic legends. But nonetheless, there's tons of funny people out there, and tons of people that I would consider like comedy legends. I hope one day to own a home. I don't, I kind of think about one day maybe building my own home, but I also like to play around with the idea of like getting like an abandoned home or something like that. Or I follow an Instagram account that's like cheap old homes. I think that's what it's called. And it's just like all across the country, like homes that are like less than $100,000, but you look at the pictures and you're like, oh yeah, there's definitely like an infestation of some sort, or maybe a ghost infestation. I don't know. I don't know. But I don't think I really like. I'm not intimidated by the idea of like taking an old home like that, an old place abandoned, forgotten in time, and repurposing it. I think I love that kind of stuff, and I watch like urban exploring videos, and some people will go out to these like abandoned mansions or whatever, and it's like, how much would those cost? Like, are they still owned by people? Are they still, what are people doing with that kind of stuff? And so, like, I like to look up stuff like that. I like to play around with that idea. And recently, I found out a certain kind of phenomenon, if you will, that's happening out in Japan right now. And they have a word for abandoned homes out in Japan, and it's either pronounced Akiya or Akaya. I think it's Akiya. But it just means like it's Japanese for empty home, I'm pretty sure, or like abandoned home. But it's like there's this thing out in Japan apparently, like where there are like tons of abandoned homes that are usually like in small towns or whatever, and they're like homes that real estate agents can't sell anymore usually due to like facilities like not being up to date, with like a lot of like Japanese like civilians are moving from small towns to the cities because that's where like work is. So it's just like nobody's out there and nobody's living in these homes. And so like and there's obviously really always, I think, especially nowadays, there's a preference for buyers to buy newly built homes. It just kind of feels like that's like what people want. And apparently, I guess in Japan, that the population is kind of falling in a certain way. And so there's more and more homes that are becoming vacant. And I guess one in every 8 houses are Akiya, or so that's like 8 million homes are empty houses, are like just abandoned. And a lot of there's so many different varying reasons I was kind of reading up on. Like I said, there's like, people moving to the cities because that's where work is and kind of declining in population. But villages in general, right, are just they're like aging. So with nobody there to take care of them, there's nobody running these villages, and with nobody living in these homes, there's nobody coming through to live in them. And I think even like in America we see that a lot. And well, actually, I don't know. I think in America it can be a little different. Sometimes I think like more and more people are flooding out to small towns in America. It feels like more and more people are trying to get away from the city. But I think that's just maybe the benefit and the privilege of living in America is that you can kind of work out in those countries where in Japan, I don't maybe it's not as easy. I don't know Japan like that well, and so but I do know that that there's certain declining industries that were once very heavy out in like these villages and like farming or something like that. But like with the modernization of technology and in society in general, there's an urban migration, which is pretty heavy. Sorry, pretty heavy in Japan. Excuse me. Sorry if you hear me burp. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was okay. So yeah, but I was reading a couple different articles about it. Like I was trying to pick up as much information on it as possible. And usually they're pretty large houses. They're like not super small, like not like they're way bigger than like an apartment, you know what I'm saying? But they're very rudimentary. So they're very basic, broken down. Like they don't have a lot of like modern day, facilities like maybe not a lot of outlets or like indoor plumbing or something like that, or the indoor plumbing is like bad or whatever. It just looks like old too. It like it's built at one time and it was like the style of that one time. And so like they're often like pretty old and left empty for long periods of time. And I think like with the time that passes, the longer that they stay empty, it's kind of often pretty expensive to renovate them, and it kind of becomes more expensive, especially as the modern like what modern is becomes like more and more like modern standards start to change. So like when you try to spend money, it's going to cost a bit, and so as times continue, it's just going to cost more. And I know that I heard that like local municipal governments like they offer certain like subsidies to aid you in like moving in. So like they might like when you buy one of these homes, they might give you money, or like they might offer like a mover or like something like that. Try to do their best to like make it feel like you're actually moving into a home. And they're just trying to get rid of these homes. That's like what I kind of always got the sentiment about reading about this is like they're just trying to get rid of these places. And like they want to bring back, I think, people to live in these villages too. That's also something I kind of read was like they really do care. Like the people that sell these places, these like Akiya homes, are like they care about the villages that they are in, that they lie around. And I like that. I think they're trying to not only improve, like bring the homes back to life, but bring the surrounding areas back to life. It's not always though like an issue of falling demands, right? Sometimes I mean, sometimes things just get kind of like they just get old, like buildings kind of collapse and when things fall apart, it's hard to like it takes more money to renovate that stuff. So, people want homes, but with older homes, they just kind of are ruined and they fall apart. So, with newly built homes, at least you'll have like a longer bit of time, right? And unoccupied homes bring down the value of surrounding homes apparently, which I can see that. I don't maybe, but like I wouldn't imagine there's probably if there's one empty home, there's probably another one right next to it type thing. That's how I feel. But I can see that too though. Like you don't want to like if you don't want to move into homes next to ones that are abandoned that are kind of in that state. And I think like the unstable population and there's a need for like survival in small towns. So like whenever it's hard to get the facilities in these small towns, and so they move away and they look other ways. And I think with like less people comes declining services too, right? Like that was something they were talking about is that there's not enough people to take care of these things and like the things that were once supported out in the villages and worked out in the villages are no longer working. There's just not people there to take care of it. And that is unfortunate. You can't help but the modernization of society and in the world in general. So you can't, if people move, it's unfortunate and commutes probably hellish from certain villages to like main cities. So I just, it's a tough thing. It'd be nice though, like if you're like someone who's like in a retirement age or like, well, but even that, because like you want the home to last forever. That's the whole thing too. They want to sell the homes to like families, to younger people that want to live there for a long time. Apparently they're pretty like so like general facts, I guess, or general things about them is like they're cheap but not free. They're like I think some are as low as 50,000 Japanese yen, so $450 American. I don't know how accurate that is, but god dang. I think that though, like obviously you pay the money, but then like I imagine there's probably a few thousand in renovations because you got to bring it up to date. So that 450 or that 50,000 yen is probably pretty misleading. At least, like, it's good that it's a cheap thing to buy, but obviously the renovations are probably going to be crazy. I guess that's the exception rather than the rule. I think that's just how cheap they can get. So I guess I don't. I guess I should have looked at the average, I suppose. Um. Oh, okay. So often large houses on substantial lots of land are listed for like 2 million Japanese yen. Not all are for sale, but a lot of them are for rent. And sometimes it's like under like $69 US per month, which is kind of crazy just to like rent out one of these homes. But again, I imagine like the thousands of dollars you might have to spend on renovations probably puts a little bit of a hamper on like that willingness to just like jump into these homes. But they like I said, they're trying their best. Japan's like doing all they can to like offer up like ways to like expand their letting people know that these homes are available or expanding the marketplace in a way. There's Akiya banks, which are like not necessarily bank as in like money bank, but like they're like more comparatively like to like a blood bank where it's like they like offer help or they like distribute like homes to people and try to like find who needs it and whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of bank, which I thought was funny. I was like, yeah, I guess I never thought about the differences. But they specialize in finding like IKEA owners, like not only find buyers, but like people that will like live there for a long time, and also like maybe potentially revitalize the village. When you get more people back into these small towns and these small villages, then business hopefully inevitably comes back. Like you'll need local grocers or like local businesses and local facilities and services. So like that's something that I think like they're trying their best. Like I said, they not only want to like find people to live in these houses, but revitalize the surrounding areas, which is awesome. I think that's important. And municipalities findings different appeals. What is that? Why did I write that? Municipalities finding different appeals. I don't know. Oh, so like there's different like okay, so like there's like okay, I guess I was leading into like incentives. Like so they're like, saying like, hey, there's these cheap homes and they're even giving people a little bit of money to help cover like the extra costs, like the renovation costs, which is pretty awesome. Like really trying to get people to start off on the right foot, which like I said, if you're really trying to revitalize these places and the villages around them, that's the way to do it. But excuse me, sorry. I just hope that people have maybe go into it knowing that, especially with like the popularity kind of this thing happening when people are like they're trying to push it. I hope that people kind of become more sensical to that information in a way. But also like smaller areas offer like free houses, I think sometimes even like I said, I don't think any of them are truly free, but like why did I write that then? I'm just confusing myself with this last stuff. Like there's some okay, so I'll just keep moving. There's some strict rules under specific conditions, like maybe if you like agree, if you buy one of these houses in a specific town, you kind of have to make like an agreement to live there for a certain amount of time. And I think that's, tough because you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know how what time's going to offer. But I think that's a way to get people to really try to inhabit these houses and make it something, and make the towns around it better too. And there are some like additional taxes and additional costs that are recognized. Like I said, like it's not cheap to renovate these things, and I'm sure there's certain property taxes and taxes to the towns, and it's going to be different for different towns. But yeah, nonetheless, I think like this whole idea that these abandoned homes are no good. And some of them might be a little outdated, and I think that it takes a lot of work, as some things do, but at least in my sense, and I know there's a whole population of people that think the same way, it's kind of an exciting thing to think about grabbing some of these abandoned homes. Like if I was into some money and like maybe one day I thought like, why not live out in Japan for a few years if I really truly could commit to that, just renovate one of these homes and make it something and try to help out the village next to it, and I think that's awesome. And maybe one day we'll shift to that. Maybe, there'll be the great urban flights where like people just don't want to be in the cities anymore. And like, maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. Who knows? But like I said, Akiya, what I forget. Like I said, I'm terrible at that. I'm not Japanese. I'm sorry. But I think it's an awesome thing, and it's a big phenomenon in Japan, and I feel like it's something that like even Americans can kind of like agree with or can connect to, is like renovating these small like these abandoned homes in small towns. All right, friends, that's really all I have to say about that. Episode 42 in the bag. I appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. If you want to listen to this episode 42, or any of like my past episodes, any of my future episodes, I always make sure to upload them on YouTube and Spotify. If you ever find anything I say enjoyable or relatable in any way, then I always appreciate a little support. You can, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. You can follow the podcast on Spotify. You could also follow me on a few different social medias. I have Instagram. I also have Facebook, and then also I'm on Twitter. I'll make sure to link all those in the description below, as well as my bio, my YouTube channel bio, any bio in general. But yeah, I always appreciate the chance to get on the microphone and talk to everybody. I'm loving doing the podcast as usual, and I'm just trying to do my best to get ahead. And I'm working on other content. I'm really trying to work on showing myself a little bit more on social media, and just try to build that confidence. But yeah, I love y'all. Don't forget to tell someone else that you love them as well. Make sure to show up for yourselves every single day and be excellent to each other.